Hi, everyone. My name is Marie Anna Winter. I am a relationship and love coach. I support couples and individuals to create thriving, loving, connected relationships. I will speak about three key elements of building a sustaining, healthy, thriving relationship. I'm going to start with the relationship foundation, how to create a truly safe and loving field together. Then I'm going to touch on sexuality and intimacy in our relationships and make sure that you stay till the end when I will talk about commitment and why commitment is not something that we just do when we get married and why it's important to find true commitment at the start of every relationship. So let me share a little bit with you about myself and my own journey in relationship and in this work of being a relationship coach. So I'm a certified sex love relationship coach. Also have a degree in social work, in equine assisted therapy, and in holistic therapy. But my passion for relationships really originates, of course, in my own relationships. If you would have told me 15 years ago that I would be in a fully committed marriage, I would have laughed at you. I thought I would never be in a long term relationship. I somehow just didn't seem to manage. When things got hard, I got scared and I had to get out. So I ended every relationship as soon as it got too hard and too stressful. When I met the man that is now my husband, the love that I felt and the commitment that I felt was so deep. But I realized that if I wanted to make this work, I better learn something about being in relationship and about myself and why I found it so hard to be in relationships. I also realized there's not much education about being in a relationship. It's not something that is taught to us at school. We really have to gather the information. So this is where my passion started, and then when I started to gather resources and really educate myself on what are those deeper layers and get support myself, get someone to work with me on where it was scary and hard. And through my own growth, and through my sharing with just the ones around me, I realized learning how to be in a loving relationship is such an important piece of being alive. It's what we need to learn as human beings to take care of each other, to take care of the world, to build thriving relationships, not just romantically, but also in our friendships and in our work relationships. There's so much to learn there. So when I started my professional education, I already had this deep, deep passion that's rooted in my own relationship, and my own relationship turned into a long-term marriage. And I honestly would say that this is still my biggest teacher. My daily life marriage, my daily life practices, my daily life interactions with my partner are still my biggest teachers for being in relationship. I work with couples from all over the world and also in all different shapes and forms of being in relationship, whether it's monogamous, polyamorous, whether it's long term, or they just started dating. I feel that there are so many tools that can be applied on all of the stages of a relationship. And I wish that everyone has support from the start of their relationship, to be held by someone who not just sees the individuals but also sees the potential of the relationship and can help them work towards that potential and realize that themselves. I really wish this for every couple, and that's what I strive to in my work. So I hope that what I will speak about today will give you some tools and some insights in how your relationships are going and what you can apply practically in your daily life to up level your relationship, no matter at what stage they are at. When I look around in life, in our society, I see that there is such a deep longing in all of us for thriving, loving relationships. We are relational beings. We flourish if we feel intimately and deeply connected with the ones around us. And very, very often there's also a deep longing for a partnership. And the all too common story is two people falling in love, creating a family, and not thriving, falling out of love, getting a divorce, or staying together because of the kids, but not really in love anymore. And I feel that there is a big missing piece in our world where we do not get education in how we can sustain our relationships. This is this big shadow piece almost of society where so many couples feel like they're failing, but they don't dare to speak about it. They don't dare to reach out for support. They feel that they have to manage it themselves. And if they don't, there's somehow something is wrong with them. So I really want to support couples to find the tools and to get the knowledge that they need to make their relationship work. How our intimate relationship is going affects us so deeply. Think about when you leave the house and you just had a fight with your partner. You probably have a bad taste in your mouth for the rest of your day. Think about leaving the house after a long connected conversation or a hug and how that can lift you up through your day. And I feel like even with functioning relationship, very, very often the full potential is not being lived by the people. We are overwhelmed, we are too busy, we are stressed, but most of all, we do not have the tools that we need to create something that truly uplifts us. So when we shift our perspective into, can a relationship be a container for evolution? Can a relationship be a ground for two individuals to be more thriving, to be more alive, to be more expressed than they would be on themselves? That shifts our way of looking at relationship and the potential that they hold. Why do they hold that potential? It's also because they do point towards our deepest fears. They do invite our deepest shadows to come to the surface. We get reactive, we get childlike, no matter how accomplished we are, no matter how mature we are, no matter how we have our stuff together in our work, in our career, in our friendships, in our social life. Our partner for sure can hit that one spot when you lose it, when you don't know what to do anymore, when you look back and wonder what happened. And like I said, this is natural, but also this holds such a potential that is so unused by so many people. So one of my big missions is to really encourage couples to share more with the ones around them, to share where they need support, to share where they are struggling, so that we can all support each other to become the full potential of our humanness and the way that we relate to each other. So, I want to speak today about some of the key elements that are so helpful to know and to practice when we are in relationship, whether romantically or not. But for the sake of this topic, I will focus on romantic relationships. But just to know that everything that I talk about is very, very applicable in any form of relationship that we're in. Also, I want to say that while I am in a fully committed long term marriage, I work with couples in every shape of relationship. So, all of these tools, apply them in your relationships, no matter what form, no matter how long, no matter what shape they're at. So let me start with giving a little context about relationships and what happens when we start relating intimately. Because very often, once the conflicts and the triggers and the hard times in relationship enter, we're kind of surprised. How is it that someone that I love so much, that I really feel that I want to be with, how is it that they activate the worst parts in me? So one thing that I always say is that you don't start a relationship when the relationship starts. You actually bring in all of your past relationships into your relationship. This means your past love relationships, but all the way back to the relationship with your parents. So what you learned about love, how you were met in your needs or not met in your needs, that all comes into the current relationship that you have with your beloved. And when there is an association, so the brain picks up something in the situation or in your partner that reminds you of a past situation, it is very likely that you switch from being present into kind of being back in the past and reacting as that past version of you. That's why we all feel like, whoa, I just reacted as a child. What was that about? Right? That's because we actually become the child and we feel the pain of what we didn't get as a child, or we feel the fear of what happened to us as a child. So becoming aware of, oh, I also bring all these past relationships into my relationship is so, so helpful to find compassion and understanding of why it can get hard in our relationships, no matter how much we love our partners, no matter how hard we try. It can get hard when our past gets triggered. And we can learn. We can really learn and practice to navigate this in very skillful ways, to navigate this in ways that we can heal in our relationships rather than having to endure those hard, triggered conflicts. So we're going to get into that today. But I just want to give you this context of it is very, very normal that you start reacting as a child, that you don't know what just happened, but you just reacted before you knew it. This is all so, so natural and such a normal aspect of being in relationships. And one very important theory that I want to touch on briefly here is the attachment theory, how the way that we attach to our caretakers influences how we are in relationship, especially when the relationships become more intimately. So we can notice it in friendships, but for sure in our love relationships. If you want to go real deep in this, please look up attachment theory because there's so much to explore and it's such rich material and it's way more that I can touch on here. But I do want to name it briefly because it just has such a big impact on how we relate. So very broadly, we can say that if we had a loving, connected relationship with our caretakers, it's very likely that we build up a secure attachment, meaning that we feel confident that we are loved, that we are safe in relationship, and that we can love someone else. Many of us, through no fault of someone in particular, but grew up with some wounding in our attachment. So broadly, you could say there are two other styles of attaching. The one is the anxious attachment, where we really need a lot of confirmation and validation of our partner, that we are loved, that they won't leave us. We often long for closeness. We often long for a lot of we time. Then there's the other style, which seems to be opposite, which is the attachment that leads us to need more space, to not have the partner to become too close because that activates fear. These two often find each other in relationships, and that's why it's so helpful to know that very often if you are at one pole, and really it's a sliding scale, you're not just one type, but if you're on one side of the sliding scale of attachment, you very often attract a partner on the other side. This is not easy, but this is also why it holds such a potential for growth, because we attach differently, because we are wired differently, we can support each other in very deep ways, and we can learn from each other about the vastness of being in relationship, opening up our hearts and being deeply connected together and grow together. So let's get into the things that we can do to become more skillful, to become more loving, to become more connected, and to really create the relationship that we desire. So I'm going to start with the relationship foundation. What does it mean to create a field, to create a foundation on which both of the individuals and the relationship can thrive? There are a couple of things that I would like to touch on. A very important starting point is, do both individuals want to take the relationship as an opportunity for growth? One of the first things that I tell every couple, and that I have to tell myself over and over again, is whatever arises in relationship is an opportunity for growth. So often when we get into triggers, when we get into conflicts, when we get into the hard parts of our relationships, we feel that we're failing, our partner is failing, the relationship is failing. And I would say to all of that, every conflict, every trigger is an opportunity for growth. The fact that it arises is natural. It happens in every relationship. And the key and the invitation is to use where it's hard and use it as an opportunity to find deeper insight, understanding, and love and connection. So, how to do that? One of the biggest things to look into together is what are our needs in relationship. We all come with needs for connection, needs for love, needs for safety and security, needs for inspiration. And those needs basically rule how we act and react in our relationship. We act hoping that our needs will be fulfilled, and we react when they are not being fulfilled. So getting clear together on what are those needs. They're so often underneath the surface. And this leads to expectations, leads to assumptions, and it leads to disappointment when our needs are not being fulfilled. So having conversations, looking together, what are the needs that I'm hoping to get fulfilled in this relationship, and what are your needs? And then to also consciously speak together about how can we support each other in getting those needs met. So rather than just working very hard to get my needs met, if I know what my partner is longing for, I can make conscious effort to help him or her get that. And with that, I create a field of love and safety. And my partner knows that I got their back. And the same thing the other way around. So this is not something that just one person in a relationship can do, right? We both have to put in our efforts. It's also not a trade. It's not like when I fulfill that need for you, you fulfill this need for me, but it is reciprocal. So we both have to put in our efforts to know and meet the needs of our partner to the best of our ability. The first step is just to get clear on what are the needs that are underneath the surface of this relationship. Another very important aspect for the foundation of the relationship is to create conscious practices together. So often life is busy, life takes over, and we forget to consciously connect. And maybe our time of connection is at the end of the day when our huge to-do lists are finished and we have little energy left for each other. So to prioritize shared time is a huge thing and a very hard thing for so many couples that I know. We're not taught that we can and should prioritize our relationships. But just think about it for a moment. How do you feel when you are nourished in your relationship? You have so much more energy available for your work, for the people around you, for your kids. So it makes so much sense to prioritize shared time. And it doesn't have to be long. If it's 10 minutes a day, that's amazing. Prioritize 10 minutes to connect in whatever way feels nourishing to you. So also get clear on how do we connect? What are the ways that we experience connection in our relationship? For some people, it's to have a daily walk. For some, it's to lay together and breathe together and just have some eye gazing moments. For some, it's to have a coffee moment together. But make sure that you find what is your shared moment and that you prioritize it in your day, not as your last thing to do on your to-do list, but maybe as your first thing to do on your to-do list. So a suggestion that I want to give you is a practice that comes from one of my teachers, Leah Martin, and it's called Desires, Fears, and Loves. And it's a beautiful, simple practice that you can do together to very easily, very quickly find connection and be in communication and reveal deeper layers of yourselves. So what you want to do for this practice is you're going to have a timer ready and you want to craft up maybe like 20 minutes. And you're going to alternate asking each other questions. So you're going to decide who is partner number one and partner number two. And partner number one will start and will ask partner number two, tell me, what do you desire? And partner number two will start answering just in a free flow of whatever comes. You don't have to think about it too much. It doesn't have to make sense. You just answer, whatever comes. And whenever this person comes to a natural pause, partner number one asks again, tell me, what do you desire? And again, other partner answers, whatever comes, come to a natural pause. And the partner asks again, tell me, what do you desire? You're gonna do this for 2 minutes, or you're gonna put a timer for 2 minutes. And after 2 minutes, you switch. And the person who was answering will now ask the question, tell me, what do you desire? The other person answers, continues to answer. And whenever they come to a natural pause, you ask again, tell me, what do you desire? So this question really allows you to go deeper into what the desires are that are on deeper levels that you might know on. So this question really allows you to get deeper, to get to the deeper layers of desire that you might not be able to touch on in your daily life. So when this first question is finished, you're again going to put a timer for 2 minutes. And the first person will ask the question, tell me, what are you afraid of? Second person will answer. Whenever they come to a natural pause, again, ask the question, tell me, what are you afraid of? And after 2 minutes, when the timer goes, you'll switch with the same question, tell me, what are you afraid of? And then when you finish that question, you're again going to put the timer for 2 minutes. And the first person will ask, tell me, what do you love about me? Second person will answer whatever comes. When they come to a natural pause, ask again, tell me, what do you love about me? And after 2 minutes, switch. And then just take a moment to feel and to notice, how was it to do this? What happened between the two of you? Very important. You don't have to get back into the content of what was said. Like what was said. But just notice what happened in your connection. How do you feel towards each other now? And do this as often as you like to find deeper layers of connection and intimacy together. So I want to challenge you here. For the next 7 days, schedule a daily 10-minute date with your beloved, in which you connect in whatever way feels good. After 7 days, look back and see, what did this bring us? How did this nourish us? How did we feel energized and held in the relationship in comparison to not having a daily moment of 10 minutes? Is it worth it? And really, like, these are open questions. Is it worth to schedule 10 minutes for us to deeply connect and tune in together? Another thing that is essential to build your foundation is to learn to deal with triggers and conflicts. This is one of the hardest things. I can speak from experience of myself and so many couples that I know. It is so hard to communicate lovingly and to stay connected when we hit triggers and when we are in conflicts. The first thing to do is to get back on the same team. Realize that you want to figure this out together, that you're not each other's enemies. Get back on the same team as soon as you can. And then slowly look deeper into what's actually happening here. What are the unmet needs that make us react to each other? Where do I not feel heard or seen by my partner that makes me react or get angry or withdraw in the relationship? Those two questions are essential. Where do I not feel seen and heard? And what is a need in me that is not being met in this moment? So there is a lot to say in getting skillful at working with conflicts and triggers. And the main thing is, it is a skill. It can be practiced by slowing down your reactivity and looking more deeply what's underneath the surface. I created a free masterclass for you that you can find at my website, mariannawinter.com, that walks you through an 8-step process of really getting clear on what happens in conflicts and triggers, and how to find your way back into connection and deeper understanding. So if you're interested in getting more skillful, and I highly recommend that you get more skillful, because we didn't learn this, at least I didn't learn this when I grew up, go to my website marieannawinter.com and download this free masterclass. For now, I just want to emphasize those 2 points of getting clear on where do I not feel heard and seen, and what are my unmet needs. And of course, creating the space for your partner to answer those 2 questions as well. Where do they not feel seen and heard by you? Not through your fault, but just maybe because you reacted rather than reflecting what they said. So, one key element when you realize you're getting into a conflict, rather than react immediately to what your partner is saying. So, your partner might be saying, "You didn't do the dishes," right? That's something that we all say to our partners every once in a while. Rather than saying, "Well, that's because I did it yesterday." Reflect what you just heard. "Oh, I hear you say I didn't do the dishes." And be curious, why is it such a big topic? Maybe they don't feel cared for. Maybe they don't feel supported. Maybe they feel overwhelmed. Get curious to why is your partner reacting, rather than immediately defending your case of how you're a good person. Really get curious to what's going on here. "Hey, honey, do you not feel supported? Can I support you in any way?" This makes such a difference and immediately calms down every trigger or conflict. Another example is one partner feeling that they need more connection and the other partner feeling they need space. For example, I would react very often, "Give me some space," when my partner would come and say, "Can we do something together?" And rather than immediately reacting or feeling hurt or saying, "Oh, well, okay, that means you don't love me," be curious. What makes your partner need space? Or what makes your partner wanting to connect? Maybe they feel disconnected. Maybe they feel in need of closeness. So rather me saying, "I need space, why do you need me again?" If I'm curious to why is my partner coming to me, it's very likely that I'll find my compassion and can ask them, "What do you need? What is the need that you're feeling that you need to have fulfilled right now? How can I support you?" Maybe they just need a hug and it's not a big impact on my space, right? So getting curious rather than immediately reacting to our partners is essential to build the foundation in our relationship. I'm gonna share with you one of the practices that has been, I'd say, most important for me and my husband, and it comes from our mentor, Jack Zimmerman, who taught us this practice very early on in our relationship. And I dare to say that without this practice, we wouldn't be in a relationship at this point. It has helped us through so many challenging moments. And also, it has given us inspiration beyond what we knew was possible for us. So, the practice is basically asking yourselves the question, if the relationship had a voice, what would it tell us? This question allows you to zoom out of the situation. So it's very, very helpful to use it when you're in a fight or in a trigger, but also just to get new insight, get new inspiration about what's going on in the relationship and what do we need as a relationship, not just as individuals. Listening to the voice of the relationship, for us, I think it has saved us in so many situations. For example, where we would really feel like, oh, maybe we're hitting an ending point here. Maybe our paths or our opinions are really, really different. Being with this question, if the relationship had a voice, what would it tell us? Very often the relationship would say something along the lines of, "Hey, this is an invitation to go deeper. This is an invitation to look into your fear of intimacy. This is an invitation to look in what patterns you created earlier on in your life around being in deep, intimate connection." And for me, that has been so incredibly helpful, because if my partner would tell me, "You're just afraid," of course I would say, "Well, of course I'm not afraid. I just don't want to be with you anymore." Right? Or something along those lines. But if I ask this question inside and I actually get this perspective myself, this is an invitation to look deeper, that's a whole different ballgame. Then I'm actually up for it, and then I feel the presence of the relationship as something supportive to me, rather than something that is threatening me. Because in a conflict or a trigger, our partner becomes threatening. We can't help it. That's how our brain works in that moment. Our partner becomes a threat. So it's up to me to ask this question and access the bigger perspective myself. So I know that it's my decision to lean in again, to come back into the relational field and know that there's growth possible. So, the easiest way to do this, what we found and what also was suggested by our teacher, is that you have a conversation, and in this conversation, you put down an empty seat for the relationship, as if the relationship was a being that was taking a seat in your relationship. So you're not just facing each other, but you're actually sitting in a little circle with an empty seat for the relationship. Then instead of just going back and forth all the time in your conversation, you also take time and silence to both innerly listen to the relationship and be with that question. If the relationship had a voice, what would it tell us? And then you continue your conversation informed by the inspiration that you might get by asking this question. So you can imagine, like when you are in a fight, um, you often don't feel on the same team anymore, right? You're defending your point of view, your partner is defending their point of view. And by listening to the voice of the relationship, what would the relationship say in this situation? Very often we can get to the third way, like the way that we hadn't thought of before. We really like, me and my partner really like to do this in moments of transition, like when we're going on a big journey, or when a new year starts, or when it's someone's birthday, like to take these moments consciously to invite the intelligence, the voice of the relationship, and be wiser than we sometimes just are as individuals. And I feels like being with this question is also what makes a couple, from being in a relationship that just repeats the same patterns or that becomes a little bit dull, it helps a couple to stay in their evolution, to stay actively in their growth as a relationship. So it keeps the relationship alive, it keeps it vibrant, it keeps it growing, because we're constantly with the question of, what is this relationship asking from us? What is it wanting from us? And how can we be attuned with that, so that also the relationship can support us as individuals to grow beyond what we could do if it was just the two of us separately. So asking the question, if the relationship had a voice, what would it tell us? It helps us to enter a certain intelligence, a relational intelligence, beyond what we can access as individuals. It helps us to stay alive. It helps us to stay vibrant. It helps us to stay attuned and to stay on the same team as partners, serving our growth and the growth of the relationship. So I really invite you to try this out. Give it a try. Listen to the voice of the relationship. So the next topic that I want to touch on is sexuality and intimacy. This is such a big topic in our intimate relationships, especially when they start becoming longer. Very, very often, the hormones of attraction that we feel in the beginning, the juiciness, the goodness, the ease of connecting, fades over time. And so many couples ask me, is my sexuality and intimacy, is it doomed to fade once we are a couple years in, or maybe even a couple months into our relationship? And I would say no, it is not, but it does require a little bit more effort and a little bit more consciousness. The first step is talk about sexuality. Keep your conversation alive. Plan a moment every week to talk about your sexuality. It seems so easy, but you'd be surprised how hard it can be to just openly speak. What are my desires? What are your desires? How can we fulfill them? How do we consciously create time for sexuality? It might sound not so sexy to create time for sexuality, but we have to in our busy lives. When the hormones fade, we have to consciously create time and create enough time so that we can take time to connect, that we can take time to get into it and not be disencouraged if there's not this intense fire and attraction anymore, but realize, hey, this is natural. This does not mean that we're not attracted anymore. It doesn't mean that we have to create a little bit of time and effort to find each other again. Speak your desires, speak what you would love to explore, and stay curious together. The easiest way to lose interest is when sexuality or intimacy becomes a habit. It becomes boring. So stay open to exploring what have we not explored yet. It doesn't have to be like super adventurous, but little things. Share your desires. This alone can be a super edgy thing for people. Share what do you truly desire and create a moment to do this at least every week. Now, one thing that I recommend to every couple who wants to up-level their sexuality is to do a recap after a sexual interaction, lay together and simply give a couple words. How was this? What was good? What was challenging? What would you like to do again or try another time? So many couples feel shy to share how the experience was, or they feel that they have to prove that it was good. And just to acknowledge sexuality can bring up very vulnerable feelings, and do a recap of how it was and know that you are together. You're together in this exploration. You're together in your desire to make your sexuality and intimacy as good as it can be. So do a little recap after every interaction to evaluate how it was and what you want to do in another time. And what about commitment? So often we're told that we only commit truly when we get married. Even if we don't believe this ourselves, it is a big belief in the society that we live in. Once we get married, we speak our vows and we're committed. But what would it mean to create a commitment that is true for you, for your individuals, for your relationship? It means that you both answer the question, what am I saying yes to? And this is something, rather than just doing it once you're already months or years into your relationship, do it at the start and do it regularly. Not just once and that's it, but do it often. Sit down together and speak. What am I saying yes to? For how long am I saying yes to this? I'll share a little bit about my own story. I was very hesitant to commit to a relationship. Commitment always sounded like something that would for sure restrict me and would be kind of a compromise that I wasn't sure that I was willing to make. So what we did in the beginning, we made commitments for 3 months. In the coming 3 months, we will show up for our relationship. We will do daily practices to keep our relationship alive. And we will reevaluate after 3 months how it has been. For me, that was a way of making it easy. Like, oh yeah, I can commit for 3 months. It also means that I don't have to doubt every moment that we get in a conflict. I don't have to doubt that maybe this is the end of the relationship. Because I said yes for 3 months. And it's not such a long time. So if it's really not okay, I can leave after 3 months. We did this for quite a couple of years. Every 3 months, we sat down again and we asked, how was it? How were the last 3 months? How did we feel nourished? How did we feel supported? And where did we feel not supported? What can we do to support each other and our relationship in a deeper way? What do we need for deeper connection? And we made a new commitment. What are we going to say yes to for the coming 3 months? When we got married, we made a commitment for a year, and we still do a commitment ceremony every year. So to do this, you can do it in whatever way feels good and natural to you, of course. But how we like to do it, me and my husband, is to really take a day together and to take this day sort of outside of our daily life. So we switch off our phones, we take off from work, and we make sure that we have the day together. We go out in nature, we do what we feel good, we do what nourishes our relationship. And then we really do a ceremony. We light a little candle and we really tune in to how is our relationship doing at the moment. What we like to do is we sit facing each other, but we also put down a seat for the relationship. If the relationship was a being, we give it a seat. So we don't just listen to each other, but we also have moments of silence and we listen to the relationship. A very beautiful question that I like to ask and offer to people that want to listen to their relationship is, what would love say? What would love say about how our relationship is doing? If our relationship had a voice, what message would it give us? And this is how we get clear into our commitments for the coming year. And we make it very specific as well. Like we have our broader commitments saying, I'm showing up for love. I'm showing up to be with you also when it's hard. But we also get specific. If I need my space when I feel triggered, I will make sure that I reconnect with you within 24 hours and that I initiate a moment of reconnecting and look deeply into what happened in that conflict. We also commit to how we can support each other's needs, saying, I know that you have a need for closeness. So I commit to holding you to the best of my ability in that need. I know what makes you feel safe in our relationship. So I commit to doing that to the best of my ability. So I'd really invite you to create these moments together and to take it in the most joyful way that you can imagine to find your true commitment together. So, to sort of summarize what we touched on today, we talked about the relationship foundation, how to find a true shared field of love and connection together, how to get skillful at your conflicts and triggers and use them as an opportunity for growth. We talked about sexuality and intimacy, how to keep that alive in longer term relationships. And we talked about commitment, how to find your true commitment together. Now, as a bonus, I want to give you the single most effective practice to get back together on a team. I mentioned in the beginning, once hard things come up in our relationships, once we get into conflicts or triggers, the first thing that happens is that we don't feel together anymore. We don't feel like we're on the same team anymore. And what we need to do is we need to tell our bodies and our nervous systems that actually this other person is safe and this relationship is safe. The most easy and effective way to do this is to breathe together with your bellies connected. This gives such a deep message to the body that you are safe. So very easily sit either on each other's lap or lay down together with the lower bellies touching and set a timer for 5 minutes and just breathe. Nothing needs to happen. Nothing needs to be revealed. You just breathe and have your bellies touching and notice what happens in your body. Notice what happens in your nervous system and notice what happens to your stress level. And I would also love to give you some resources. I highly recommend looking into the work of Esther Perel. She is an amazing relationship expert. Also, look into the work of Harville Hendricks and look into the work of Stan Tatkin. They give such valuable practices and tools and insight in what happens in relationship and how can we improve our intimate relationships. Now, the last thing that I want to say is that there is this saying, it takes a village to raise a child. I would say it also takes a village to hold a relationship. We live in a world where we are far from community often, and we are these isolated units of couples or families. And it is very, very hard to hold the relationship and all the challenges that it brings. So reach out when you need support. Don't be ashamed. Don't feel like you are the only one. The more you share your struggles in your relationship, the more you will realize you are not the only one. We all deal with the same topics in our own unique ways. We all deal with the same fears, with the same longings. So reach out, make sure that you have the support that you need to hold your relationship so it can be thriving and loving and an inspiration for everyone around you. If you want to learn more about my work, please visit my website, marieannawinter.com. Get your free download, my masterclass to work with triggers and conflicts in relationships. So be sure you get skillful at that. Reach out with any questions. I'm always happy to be in conversation around relationships. Let's do this together. Let's do this to create a more loving world. The more loving our relationships get, the more loving human beings we are in the world, the better we can take care of this planet together. Let's do this together.